All right, everybody, welcome. I think we're live. I don't know for sure because this is a bootstrap operation if there ever were one. But I'm pretty sure we're live here. I am so excited that you're here today. We have another episode of the People Cooler Than Me show. My name is Tyler
Woo!
Dupree, and I am on a mission to interview the coolest people in the world. I'm starting with anybody and everybody who's cooler than me, which I'm finding out very quickly is everybody. Today I'm super excited because we have a guest on the show who actually helped me with one of my People Cooler Than Me projects. He's someone who is also at the very beginning of his journey. I'd say is as far as publishing content online. He's doing a podcast. He's done 2 seasons now. He's in the middle of his second season on a YouTube series. So without any further ado, welcome to Ian Isanberg.
Hi, Tyler. Thank you for having me on the show. And I'm sure I'm not the only person to say this where I can argue that maybe you're cooler than me. But thank you for thinking that I'm cooler than you and having me on the show.
Oh man, yeah. There's no way. First of all, you helped me. I'll just say right off the bat with getting my podcast up. The People Cooler Than Me show, ladies and gentlemen, is in the iTunes podcast player. What do you even call it? The podcast store. We
I
are.
believe Apple has actually officially started calling it Apple Podcast, but everyone calls it iTunes. It's you can get it. I mean, if you're on a computer and you have an iTunes app, it's there. I mean, if you're on an iPhone, you can use the podcast app. And if you're on Android, there's other options too that is uploaded to.
Okay. So interesting. So you said it was uploaded to Androids or not? Sorry.
Yeah. It's on Google Play, Stitcher, and TuneIn, as well as Apple Podcasts. You can
Oh,
search the People Cooler Than Me show. You can search Taylor Dupree. That's right, your show. Every episode, including this one at some point, maybe even after we finish it, will be available live to listen anytime.
okay. Yeah. So, cool. Well, yeah. Thanks everybody for joining. We're super pumped here. Let's get started. Let's talk about your story, Ian. You are currently doing a YouTube series where I'm going to let you kind of take it away, but it looks like you're uh, uploading one video every day, and you're now on season 2 of that. Tell me how that got started.
It started that last fall. Like, I'm someone who has been looking for a way to consistently make content and something that would stick. I can tell you about almost a decade ago. Yeah, I joined Twitter in 2007. So, and I remember in the early days, I was able to contact people, and or if I even just posted a question, I'd get a lot of answers. And one thing I've found is as the social media of that time, particularly Twitter and Facebook, hit critical mass, that did not have that anymore. I was like, how do I stand out and how do I make something that's going to have some response? So I played around with videos, and then I decided at some point I got to do something. Maybe I'll do a podcast and like let go of the video thing. Then I was listening to someone who we're both very much a fan of, Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm
That's
someone
right.
who has been a fan of his content forever. I mean, seriously, like I bought Crush It in 2009. I was actually visiting San Francisco at the time. I remember reading it in one night and being like, yeah, I need to make stuff to stand out. And I did stuff, but it wasn't what is the thing? I don't know. So years later, I had something which I called the Venusons. Because in some ways I let go of Gary Vaynerchuk. I knew we started VaynerMedia. I had a friend, Ari Levine, who worked for VaynerMedia, but I didn't realize that it was this giant operation. For some reason, I thought he was still running Wine Library and living and working in New Jersey, not realizing he had his father and his friends take over Wine Library. So I read all of his latest books, including the Ask Gary V book, But then I went back to Crush It. I was listening particularly to the audio version since I'm someone who's been very much into podcasts, especially since Serial a few years ago. So I was listening to the original Crush It audiobook on loop. I'm listening to it. I was like, this is great. I need to listen to it again and again and again until I realized one day I was driving to work and thought, I got to do something right now. So I immediately took out my phone and said, hi, this is Ian Isanberg. Today is day 1 of 90. I'm making one video every day for 90 consecutive days. And I really had no plan. I decided, let me add a question a day. I immediately uploaded to YouTube and then realized I haven't been doing much with Instagram. So let me also upload it to Instagram. So my videos actually daily show up on YouTube and Instagram. And one of my biggest surprises in the first 90 days is I probably got a lot more comments on Instagram than YouTube. However, one thing is it wasn't so much about getting an audience as much as saying having me have something out there and having it consistent. And that's how it was born. And I got to day 90. I started in September. I ended in December and realized this was great. Although I wasn't sure exactly what the next step was going to be at the time. I thought maybe I'll do another season. Maybe I'll do a podcast. Maybe I'll do something. And then right now, today, if anyone watched my video today, it's day 67 of 90 season 2, where I've now released 8 episodes of my podcast. And I'm just very much going ahead. Yes, it was. Where I now used it as the whole idea. It takes 90 days to form a habit. So if I decide to do it in 90 days, in some ways it's documenting it, while at the same time using the same format of the first season where the goal was to make 90 videos. The goal of the second season was to end those 90 days as a podcaster. And I'm almost beyond 2/3 of the way of it. I'm there.
Fascinating. Okay, so we got you. So you read Crush It, where Gary talks a lot about creating online content, and then you just went and did it, right? That was day 1 for you.
No. I mean, there was a big delay for me because it wasn't the first time I read Crush It. The original time I read Crush It was in 2009. So it was 8 years after I first.
I thought you said it was that day.
In that. No, 8 years. I had 8 years of time where I dabbled around with things like Blog Talk Radio. I'd make videos here or there. I did a Harlem Shake video. I did an Ice Bucket Challenge video.
Oh, nice.
Talking about the memes of the day. I did a bunch of shaving videos. I actually have a shaving video from 2 years ago, the day after I met, who's now my girlfriend. And I did a video where I went to the bathroom. I was ready to brush my teeth and go to sleep. I said, you know what? I'm going to put my phone in the medicine cabinet right now and record myself shaving and then edit it down to 30 seconds, or maybe it was a minute or something. And this beard was gone. Even though this current version of the beard has not been around for a year. But I've had fun with video.
What's the purpose of the shaving video? Can you explain that?
I think it's a lot of it had been just about documentation and finding something here and there. And if you look at my early YouTube videos, I have a bunch of shaving videos. Sometimes I did sometimes, or I did it before and after, or a few years. I did Movember for a few years where I would do a shaving video, or I would do before. Sometimes I just did a before and after video with it saying, okay, here's my mustache. Now my mustache is gone. And I found that was a way. And what's interesting is there's a big subculture of YouTube shaving videos. Like, I'm not the only one. In fact, my Harlem Shake video was a Harlem Shave video, where the first part of the video I had the beard, the second part I didn't. And now that I think of it, I should have done it reverse.
What? Okay, this is like a can of worms. YouTube is big on shaving videos. That's the first I've heard of it.
Well, the thing is, I mean, YouTube being such a big search engine, there are so many random niches. Like the other day, I had a friend named Erica, and it was her birthday. So I decided to, instead of make a video for her, which I did maybe 2 years ago. I was like, let me just do a YouTube search on Happy Birthday Erica. And I just found some random video of someone doing some funny video, like wishing their friend Erica happy birthday. I was like, that's it. Yes. There's so much stuff. There's so much, like, I've always considered myself the king of finding a random YouTube video as a comment, whether it's a song or just something silly.
Fascinating. Okay. All right. So, getting back to your video series. Yeah, let's talk about what that was like. So, it's kind of like a learning experience for you, an opportunity for you just to start putting content out there, even if nobody's watching. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so what did you learn in the early days of getting into the habit of documenting, of starting to create that content? What are some of the things that sort of that you discovered in that part? And I'm only asking because our listeners are
Yes.
at the very beginning of their journey, right? And so,
Right.
they a lot of listeners are starting businesses or just dabbling in creating some online content, the way that Gary Vee often advises. And so I get, yeah. So what were some things that you discovered were difficulties, successes, things like that?
I think one of the things was sometimes I came in prepared with a question or I came in prepared with an idea. And sometimes it wasn't that. Also, I didn't want to make the same video every day. Like a lot of videos I made have been on the way to work, whether it's like right outside of where I work or even like at Dunkin' Donuts across the street before I go to work. Another thing I got into a rut of was since I do a question of the day, which is inspired by how Ask Gary Vee mostly has a question of the day. I found I was getting in a rut of what's your favorite this, what's your favorite that, what's your favorite ice cream flavor, what's your favorite TV show, and and I realized sometimes it got monotonous. Also, there have been times when I would be asking a question, which I thought was really cool, and I'd get no responses. Even though the goal hasn't been to even get views as much as it's been people responding. Or when I see on Instagram, where there's a lot of times you'll just see someone who just does the fake, that's so cool, and realize they didn't watch the video, or they just were just trying to connect to you
Darn
and they
marketers.
pretend that
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, spammers on Instagram. I know the deal.
it's the spam. And yeah, but a lot of it had also, there were times where it was late at night. I realized, wait, I haven't made a video yet. Like most of my videos are during the day,
Yeah.
kind of like how I'm outdoors right now. I mean, natural light. As someone who was very much involved, I used to be very involved in video production and film production. I used to be, one of my first jobs out of college was I was a studio manager for a film production company in the Bronx. And I'd be working on these videos and realizing that production quality, even though anyone can release a video on YouTube, and even though I'm not looking for like perfection, I realize it still gotta look good.
Yeah, for sure. Are you working on anything in the video production realm? Or do you have any projects? Is that like a goal of yours?
Professionally, I have actually really my real interests have been as I go very deep into why I was a comp manager, why I was very active in my college TV station, why I worked in media. And I think my real goal had always been, how can I communicate with people using these tools in ways that I haven't been. And also, I go beyond it. How can I help other people better communicate?
Yeah.
I actually don't have the clear goal of what that is. I'm 38 years old. I've had so many different jobs, like whether it's production companies. I went from that to media sales to SEO sales. I've had stints working at movie theaters and Starbucks, and my current job, I'm a supervisor at at a major warehouse club or company, which I very much enjoy. That headquarters may be in the same city as Starbucks. It is, but it's
Okay.
and it's something which I enjoy, and I'm very happy that that I'm in a place right now where I am making a salary that I enjoy and I have great benefits and I enjoy the time that I'm there. But at the same time, I want to be in a position where I could be using these communication skills and using the technology that we have, including this internet, to help other people communicate. I'm not sure what that's going to be. Help people get jobs, whether it's working for other companies to on their social media. I'm not clear what it is. So,
Okay.
but at the same time, works great, and I'm able to experiment with videos and with podcasts and get better at them and watch tutorials, watch other people's shows, be guests on other people's shows, and it's
That's the
a
best
very
part.
fun ride.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yes.
So let's talk about your podcast. You have
Yes.
isn't it just called Isanberg?
Yes, it is Iceberg. I've thought of it like those old school talk shows where you have someone like Phil Donahue and everyone will call him Donahue. And
Right.
I have a very weird spelling of a name. The traditional spelling of Eisenberg is different, but the army changed my grandfather's name because he had the original spelling Isenberg. So Eisenberg, as I spell it, which is I, S as in Sam, A, N as in November, Berg. I've had to tell many people over the phone about that.
Yeah.
So, like, it is very uncommon. So I decided to be Iceberg. And also,
Okay.
when I was working at the theater, I was a manager for 4 years. And at the movie theater chain where I worked at, the weird thing is I always found it weird that the managers do not go by their first names. I was not Ian when I was a manager. I was Mr. Eisenberg.
Oh, that's
So there'd be
bizarre.
people that would just call me. So there'd be people that would call me Eisenberg. So I thought that's one of the times I thought that would be a great name for a show, and a great name for an identity. So I
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
acquired. I registered all the handles on social media except Instagram at the time because some guy in Brazil whose name is nothing to do with Eisenberg somehow had it. And just a few months ago, he changed his name. I was like, yes! And I was going by Eisenberg and finally got Eisenberg on Instagram.
Oh, so you are Eisenberg on Instagram.
I'm Eisenberg on Instagram, on Twitter,
Fantastic.
on Facebook, not Snapchat yet. Like I found out that I have to actually cancel my Snapchat account and start a new one if I wanted to change my name.
Okay.
Come on,
So
Snapchat, change it. Yes. Yes.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know anything about changing names on Snapchat. I'm barely on Snapchat myself. But yeah. Let's talk about the podcast. What do you on Eisenberg? I mean, I'm sure you're not quite at the same ratings as Donahue, but maybe halfway there. And
Right.
um, what are some of the things that you've been able to do though? Like, and I think that viewers should be able to take interest in this because everybody starts somewhere, and everybody starts with just putting content out there, even if you're not getting, Gary Vaynerchuk to be a guest on your show. Everybody's got to start somewhere. So, what does that look like for you? Where did you start with this podcast? Who have you been able to talk to? Let's just run through some of the highlights.
Yeah, I've originally you start with just like you do in production or Kickstarter campaigns, what they call FF&F, friends, families, and fools. Okay, maybe you're not fools, but I started with people I knew, people I went to high school with, people who I'm very close to, people who I hadn't seen in a while, and started like my very first episode, which I call my pilot episode now, because I recorded the interviews a year before I really started getting gung ho into it. Are friend I went to high school with who lives in the Netherlands, and another friend who lives in Israel. And I was able to interview him. And from that point on, I realized I can do this. I can make it work. Other guests I've had since include more going in. I've started first in my network. I had I have a friend who is a stand-up comedian in New York City, and he does a bunch of comedy shows each week, and he tours. His name's Vincent James. I then I also had a friend named Rob Schmidt, who, for anyone who goes to see live music in Westchester County, New York, where I live, particularly at the Capitol Theater, knows this guy. He's a very much a mainstay. He's always sitting at the rail, and he's very much identifiable by him just dressed wearing Cookie Monster gear, and that's become kind of his nickname and his persona. His name's Rob Schmidt, and his name's Cookie Monster. And then I had a guest who his name's Jason Pfeiffer. He's actually the editor in chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, who is an old friend of mine. We were camp counselors together many years ago, and it's really exciting because actually on his Facebook today he showed a picture of him interviewing Gary Vaynerchuk, who's on the cover of the next issue of
Oh yeah,
Entrepreneur Magazine.
that's right. I saw that. That must have been a fascinating interview. What episode is that?
That is, I think I might relabel them, but that's season one, episode 3, as I call it, even though it's my 4th episode. I'm considering getting rid of the whole idea of seasons because that's another part of my experimentation. Since my goal had been over these 90 days to make 10 episodes, I think I'm at the point where I might actually have 11 or 12 by day 90 that have been produced during this period, not counting that first episode I did a year ago.
Well, did you get any sweet entrepreneur tips from the pro?
The funny thing is, we weren't talking so much about entrepreneurship as much as it was about the use of content. As I'm someone who's followed him ever since he had his website back when we used to both have like these very 1.0 websites like in the late 90s.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's really cool seeing how he and then he went to a blog form, and then he became a journalism major and started writing for newspapers and magazines. Then moved to New York. He became the assistant. He was working actually for Men's Health for a while, and then he went to Fast Company, where he made some really cool videos, which was a great thing and a big, exciting thing. Seeing him do these things and seeing him taking pictures with famous people, like seeing like Shaquille O'Neal, and he's a big Miami Heat fan since he's originally from South Florida. And then going to Entrepreneur and talking about how he actually went to his college, and he was talking about innovation and actually like in departments and centers that hadn't even existed. So it's funny how we weren't talking so much about entrepreneurship, but as much as how he's experiments with video and with writing and
Awesome.
pictures. And he's a very funny guy, and I invite you to all check him out. He actually hosts his own podcast called Pessimist Archive, where he talks about things which were taboo at certain times. Like at one point when the Walkman came out, and there was a town in New Jersey where it was illegal to cross the street wearing headphones.
Oh wow, it probably has
That's
like a
right.
safety issue, right?
Yeah, because I mean it was a new, exciting thing, and it's interesting. Even things like there was an episode about just like manure and the idea of the cars go and how it kept the streets clean, and people were still like, no, we'd rather have these horses, but but we hate all the feces that's all over the ground. So
Yeah.
it's a fascinating thing about how things change and how sometimes people have trouble adapting to change.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one constant, it's change, and yet I think that you find people who will struggle to even accept that the internet, because surely that's a fad and that's going to go away. And today you don't hear that, but I remember hearing that when I was a kid. I was a kid of the '90s. I'm that old, and I remember hearing that the internet was a fad, and so you heard that about MySpace and Facebook. Then Twitter rolled around, and I was in journalism school, and we talked about how and my journalism school was ahead of things, I think, and we were not. They weren't teaching us to to undervalue these platforms, but I heard in sort of like the universe at that time that that was a fad and that was going to go away and that newspapers were going to come back. And so,
Yep.
the only thing that's constant is that these things always get replaced and updated. So that sounds like a fascinating podcast. I'm super interested in listening to that, and as well as listening to your podcast and the interview that you
Yes.
did. Congratulations on getting that fantastic interview so early in the
Yes.
podcast. Oh, sweet! You're
Yeah,
near an
yes.
airport.
Yes, I am. I'm actually right near Westchester County Airport, which it's HPN.
Nice.
It's actually it's tech. They say it's White Plains, but it's not really White Plains. As a kid, actually, I used to ride my bike there with my dad. That was a very fun thing. It used to be like this little dump, like the TV show Wings, if you remember that. If you're, I'm not sure. I think you might be too young for that. Where it took place like in this little dumpy airport lounge, and it was like it used to be a little coffee shop. They've since knocked it down, built like a big terminal. I know Bill Clinton used to always fly in there, but yeah, it's
Cool.
funny. It's yes it is, and actually I'm very excited because coming up later this week, I'm going to be interviewing an Emmy winner, and someone who is a lifelong filmmaker who got diagnosed with MS and it's made it his life about about like showing like how to get like standing up for people with disabilities who can't get around, particularly like public transportation in New York City where he lives. His name's Jason De Silva. It's funny, all these great people named Jason I've been interviewing.
Well, that's a common name. That's another fantastic
Yeah.
interview. Cool. When can we expect to see that?
That one should be up in a few weeks.
Very cool. Very cool, man. What? So let's talk about like, I mean, everybody here is very entrepreneurial based. They're interested in um, the this where you're going from here, where what the plan is, right? Like what
Right.
you have this YouTube show that's sort of quickly uploading short videos just to get into the habit of it. You have this podcast where it sounds like you're getting some really interesting guests. Fantastic branding with the name Isanberg with the unique spelling. That's cool. So
Yes.
what?
And also you can go back to Breaking Bad and Heisenberg, and that's another
Oh,
thing
nice.
that I thought's a great connection. Like almost anyone who knows me when they first saw Breaking Bad and when the Walter White character said Heisenberg for the first time, everyone thought it was Eisenberg
Oh man, that's
that knows me.
yeah, that's funny. Okay, well yeah, play off of that. You could do like a little Breaking Bad intro to your videos or something, and then it just says Eisenberg. But that would be cool.
Yes.
That could be very cool. Yeah. So I guess like the question is, where do you have a North Star? Where are you going from here? Where are we going to see you on mainstream television like Phil Donahue?
I don't I don't think so. And it's funny you mentioned Donahue. I had a like my college roommate told me that like that his at his high school prom or graduation or something that they were good as this big celebrity. And everyone's like, oh wow, someone famous. And it was Phil Donahue. And they're like, huh? Who's this guy? I don't know if it's about fame. I like the idea of having the show and being able to communicate and helping people. I'm looking at finding ways to teach. It might not be the traditional way of being a teacher in a school or a college professor, but I want to find ways to help other people get online and get their word out. And the thing is, it's like, as you're talking about, we're like very entrepreneurial minded, and especially like in the Gary Vee world, it's all about the entrepreneur. Sometimes I don't even know if it's about the money. You know, one show which I've been listening to this year, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's called Side Hustle School.
No, I've never heard of it.
It's hosted by a guy named Chris Gillibo. He's a author. He wrote a book called The $100 Startup, and
Okay.
it's just fascinating. Where it's like I came to the point where I have a full time job, whether I stay with this forever or not. I do have it's a great plan B if I'm here if I stay where I work forever. At the same time, it's what else can I do? how can I make money? So I have ideas about writing books, about making series that are very specific to different niches. But it's one of those things where it's like, I like the idea that I'm keeping my options open. I'm not declaring that I'm going to do this. Right now, my goal is after these 90 days and after these 10 episodes, I don't see myself stopping with the podcast. I just want to continue interviewing people, being able to get better at it. Like, one thing I'm very much like the idea of is being able to produce podcasts and able to produce series for businesses. Because I've always felt that there's too much of people advertising and just being like, buy our product, where it's like, as Gary Vaynerchuk would call it, a right hook. But it's, when you watch television, it's not for, you don't watch it for the commercials, you watch it for the shows. So what are the shows that I can make that will connect people to the business? Like, one thing I like about, I mean, the thing is, it's like, commercials don't have to always be irritating. Like, a lot of times it can really relate to me. Like, I know when I first started listening to Spotify, I was very annoyed because I felt that the ads, which were usually for other artists, they were always like in genres very different to what I was listening to at the time and what I was interested in.
Yeah.
But if they turned me to music I'd be interested in, I'd think, wow, I'll check that out.
Yeah. So I'm actually very intrigued by this idea. Getting with what Gary Vaynerchuk talks about, with every business out there is a media company. Every business out there needs to be producing this kind of content. So, and I really think that it's kind of a foregone conclusion that these businesses are going to have to start dabbling in that arena. You're seeing. I saw an ad where, I saw a story where a major department store actually moved all of its advertising to Facebook, and they actually moved it away from a lot of the traditional advertising platforms. And so I think you're onto something there. I think the market for companies that are looking for people to help them produce this kinds of material is only going to get bigger. I imagine it'd be hard to get established, but a few people, you help produce a few podcasts that end up being big or average, right? Or help a certain company grow its business. I just think you're really onto something there. I think you should really pursue that.
Absolutely, and I think the first step is just getting it down. Like there's one of the things I've heard is like, your first 100 blog posts will suck, your first 100 videos will suck, your first 100 podcasts will suck. So I have no problem sucking as long as I'm getting better each time, to the point where I can be like, yeah, I'm a podcaster. It's not just I have a podcast. I am a podcaster. I make podcasts and I know what works with them. I know what doesn't work with them. And now I can be able to share with you how to do it and work with you, and perhaps even you can pay me, and so I can produce a show that is relevant to your business and your audience.
Yeah. Well, it's been great talking to you, Ian. You are slowly disappearing into the
night.
Right, into the night there, as the sun goes down there in New York. So we're gonna have to let you go. And my battery's running out, and my charger's on the other side of the room. So that's a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I really appreciate you being on. Let's talk real quick. First, I need you to tell me someone who you think is cooler than you, and maybe might want to be on my show.
Very cool. Someone who is absolutely cooler than you.
Cooler than you? Everybody's cooler than me.
Everyone's cooler than you.
Right.
Let's see. One person that's definitely cooler than me, or at least at times. It was actually the second guest I had on my show. His name is Vincent James. He is a comedian based in New York City. He's a very
Cool.
entertaining person. He's a father. He just has a lot of fun just experimenting with new things and just meeting people. And he's a very outgoing person. He's
Do you
someone definitely I'd say cooler than me, and someone I think would make a great guest on your show.
do you know his Twitter handle offhand? It's fine if you don't.
I think it's the Vincent
Don't
James.
worry about it. Yeah, everybody's going to watch this. They're going to immediately find Vincent James, and they're going to ask him to be on my show. Uh, very politely and very nicely, they're going to
Oh well,
set.
of course they're like, wow, he's cooler than you.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah.
Tyler, you should check this guy out. Wow, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. All of that is going to happen, and we're going to make it happen. But
awesome, Tyler.
no pressure either way. But anyway, I really appreciate you being on this show, Ian Isenberg. You are officially cooler than me. Congratulations.
Woo!
Yeah.
Or am I?
Yeah. So everybody go to look up the Isenberg podcast. Go to YouTube and look up the channel Ian Isenberg.
And,
And yeah, at Ian
and
at
Tyler
Isenberg everywhere.
at Isanberg, and also since a lot of people don't know how to spell my name, you could also go to yourfavoritepodcast.com because it is your favorite podcast.
All right, yourfavoritepodcast.com. Fantastic domain name. I cannot believe you snagged that. That is cool. So everybody, thanks for joining. Tomorrow we are going to do something unique. We're going to do a subscriber hangout. Hopefully the first of many. I plan to hang out there by myself for a while, but basically I'm going to put a link out there in the comments of the YouTube video, and so as you're watching, you'll see the link there. You can click on it, log into a Google account, and join me on the show, on the People Cooler Than Me show, because all of my YouTube subscribers are cooler than me.
Yay!
Yeah, so join me on the show tomorrow, and we'll just chat about whatever it is that you're doing, what you're all about. We'll keep it short, or go an hour if you want to talk for an hour. So anyway, I really appreciate it, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see all of you guys tomorrow on the People Cooler Than Me show.
Thank you. Goodbye.